actually points to this thing, because that would be nice. Oh, it says that we're live on the correct one. Is this so? One where you said "sup, folks" and all that. That's the one where, yeah. All right, that was a little.
Oh yeah, that's
a
picking
little
us
hectic. But all right, everyone, tell me if you can hear us. If everything's going well. It says 3 currently watching on Odysee. Let me just do hey everyone and all that good stuff. I still remember when I did this on what was it? When I did this like on the audio only version in the beginning, where I just copy the audio over, just did that, and then people start really upset. They're like, "You just talk about nothing for a while, cut all of the chatter out," and I'm like, all right, geez, like chill for just a second. But yeah, everyone should be able to watch. It says the correct Odysee. Man, Odysee is better than YouTube here, I gotta say.
I have no doubt. I haven't worked with them either, but I have no doubt.
Yeah, but it's just because it's just so much easier to schedule. I see Fulagi Johnson's there. It says can hear you now. Fugazi Johnson. All right. Oh, that was a little. I'm glad I'm having my coffee today, but because otherwise it's chaotic. But yeah, we have a whole bunch of fun stories to talk about. I have to admit, the Ethereum, just we'll roll the intro thing in just a couple of minutes, but I have to admit the Ethereum story.
I'm excited.
I am excited too, because there's a thing that's coming out that's huge. But like ETH 2.0 has been it's kind of like evolution, right? It's just like been in like production forever, and like no one really understood what it was going to concretely do, but it was supposed to be awesome and make everything better. And it just like, oh, it's around the corner, just all this like stuff. And it's just like, because, I've paid a lot more attention to evolution in terms of Dash because I'm much more involved with the community. But like as far as the Ethereum stuff, I just couldn't even pay attention to it. Other it's gonna scale. Yeah. It's proof of staking.
Yeah.
And so I admit that I'll probably be leaning on you a little bit for this one, but yeah, that's probably that's gonna be a cool one. And then the DashDirect app released in a private beta only, or a public beta, I should say. The virtual MasterCard program, which is freaking awesome, but there's no NFC, so it's clunky to use in store, meaning you have to like manually key in a card number or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But there's some workarounds to that, which I will be discussing when we hit that part of stuff. And then yeah, just more ETH funds being frozen and stuff, and just general market sentiment. And you mentioned float and NFTs, and we'll get into all that stuff. So
yeah,
I think that's probably a good time to roll the intro and get going. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Turn up the energy. Boom. So, hey everyone, happy Friday. I really hope you had a great week. I know I did. It was very busy. And let's just start off the weekend right. Get your coffee, get your cocktail, although that might be for the after party later. There's a lot of fun stuff going on there. But I am joined by the one and the only Chuck Williams. How's it going, brother?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Let me tell you something, brother.
This is a welcome break from a very heads down, focused time that we're having over at Float.
Yes, and it's been the same thing for me, except I have like a little bit of anxiety starting up the show, because this is the first time I did like the stream to YouTube thing, and it's just, it's or the stream to an event, like where I schedule the event in advance, and Odysee works way better. But now that I'm actually in the chatting stuff, I just feel the weight come off my chest. It's a good time.
Good, take a breath.
Yeah, and so before we jump right into these news stories, because I know, we kind of a little bit late, but we're always kind of. It's funny. Fulagi Johnson, who has been in the live chats, He said he caught me calling him Fugazi.
Yeah,
He says,
nice.
what the fuck? It's just funny. That's how I remember like certain names and stuff.
Fugazi, Fugazi. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a woozy, it's a wazzy.
Hmm.
So subscribe on YouTube and Odysee. Obviously, I have a preference for decentralized platforms or that run on decentralized infrastructure. So if you want to watch on Odysee, that is my preference currently. Now, if I end up monetizing the channel on YouTube and Odysee doesn't have those same options, maybe I'll shill for the centralized corporate overlords too. But just so you know,
Hmm.
in both streams, there should be a link to the other platforms so you can actually watch on whichever one you want. And I do monitor
Right.
both live chats.
Oh boy.
CoinTR.ee/the desert links gets into the live super chat. You drop a little donation, throw in there, and it'll come up. Just make sure you ask sooner rather than later because sometimes it takes a little while to kick in and you might not get it before. If it's like 2 minutes before the end of the stream, you might not get it in time. So just so you know that stuff. And in other channel news ish, at some point this year or there's some point in the next month or so, once I get a few other things figured out, I'm doing a revamp of the channel, which won't really change too much. But part of that is I'm going to be minting a few NFTs. And one thing, and Sir Charles right here, Chuck is going to get one because
Oh.
I got a custom design made for everyone who comes on the show.
Oh, that's cool.
And a custom, sorry, not for each person, but a custom
Sure.
for people to do that. And it's a little fun spinny NFT. And I'm going to go give it to you once I create it. And everyone else has
Nice.
already been on. And that will allow exclusive access to like a Telegram group and stuff, which is, you know, like
Very nice.
super in club. And there's a plugin that lets you do this, which is really cool, or a Telegram
Hey.
bot that like literally checks your wallet for an NFT. So I'm gonna
Maybe
figure
when
out,
we launch float groups, we'll integrate it. We could integrate your
yes.
NFT.
And of course, I'll also be selling some NFTs for the other people who aren't coming on the show, just want to support. Instead of having to like pay for this super chat every time, you know, just maybe like pay $100, buy an NFT, and then you can just chat all like forever. And the cool thing about NFT secondary markets is if you just get tired of the show, you could just sell it, and then someone else gets into it, and then yeah, it's like, or you can just buy like all of them and then like squat on them to try to resell them at a higher price because you think I'm cool and I'm going to become super popular in the future. And that $100 price tag access is going to be worth a lot. But we'll see. This is a lot of fun stuff. Fabio in live chat also says Chuck the Legend. So a lot of good people. Before we get started with like the news stories, you mentioned Float NFTs. So you have a chief experience officer in Float, from my memory, and
Yeah.
you mentioned something about not only working hard but NFTs on Float. You want to just tell us what that's about real quick?
Yeah, quick plug if you go check out floatnft.com, that's FLOTE NFT.com. It'll also redirect you to floattoken.com/NFT. But that is where we have all the details on our Plank Owner series, which entitles the owners to a bunch of perks, not the least of which I thought was very interesting. We were able to lock in a partnership with Unstoppable Domains. So you get one free Unstoppable domain with each NFT, and also some perks when we bring those utility perks onto the Float platform, but also an airdrop of Float tokens. So we're putting a lot into these NFTs, and we're hoping that people will scoop them up, and maybe this will be available in the future, or maybe not. We have not publicized or really locked that in yet. So yeah, check those out, and of course float.app, FLOTE.app. Always check that out.
Yes, and just on the NFT discussion, because I've mentioned just about every rundown in the last several months, I mentioned NFTs in some way, whether or not it was on the schedule. But I've been chatting with a lot of the kids and stuff who get really excited about this. There's a giant generational divide, both like physical generations, like age, and crypto generations, and when you got into crypto, between NFTs and the rest. And I've like, some of it is, I think we just seen so much crap out there with NFTs. We just want to dismiss the whole thing as crap. But there's a lot of really cool stuff, and I'm committed to exploring the sustainable NFT model, meaning not like some environment stuff, but like it's even if the wave passes, people will still want to buy it because of the utility. Like I'm trying to make sure it like makes sense. That it's not only I'm selling something that people
Yeah.
enjoy, like it provides utility, but also I'm trying to explore ways in which it's the most efficient way of providing that utility to people
I
is
think
through this
access
thing.
for our individual time and attention is going to be like that's going to be one of these fractalization of niches. Like you want
Hmm.
my time, you buy a token, you get an NFT, and then I know that you're worth my time.
Yeah. Well, so for example, obviously access, right? That's one thing. The
Yep,
cool thing about an NFT is if you add a cool little artwork or animation or something, and it becomes a collectible no matter what else it does. And it's been
sure.
like 99% collectible has been what NFTs have been today.
I was looking at 3D programmable. Like I want to do a programmable 3D NFT.
Mm,
I want to take it as far as I can take it. I might make it the key to enter the kingdom of Ludum Vitae. Who knows?
yeah. I mean, that would be really cool. I've been thinking about that stuff too. But
Hmm.
so obviously selling access and perks, stuff that normal content creators do, but packaging it with a collectible where it's just like, it's not just like, oh yeah, you got in. It's like you got in with a special token of appreciation kind of thing built into it, in ways that make it more efficient. And so, for example, like I gotta just rant about this thing for 2 seconds. I'm sorry, you bring out the ranter in me, but like, like an NFT is a digital property deed. And so, for example, down here, like, see the weird, ugly matrix code background in the back of like the screen
Sure.
here.
Yeah.
Put that as like, let's say, an ad space, right? And right
Hmm.
now, subscribers, you sign a contract, you run an ad in the space, and there you go. That's just the way it already works.
Right.
But I'd rather like allow people to sublet that too. So like you sell that
Oh,
as an NFT over the court for for the quarter or for the year. Sell that
nice.
space at
Yeah.
that, and then whoever has the NFT can just run whatever they want in there with, of course, certain stipulations and conditions that you'll get a refund or whatever. We'll just cancel the whole thing if you start putting up like private parts there or something.
Right.
But
Right.
then with, of course, the resale fee, where if, let's say, the channel blows, like say you buy advertising space for the entire year, but then the channel really blows up and you just locked into this contract and you don't want to advertise anymore or whatever, you can just always resell that NFT at a higher price and someone else gets that ad, cut it. I don't have to deal with another advertiser right away. They get to just switch that out, and then I get a cut of the resale fee and stuff. It's like an interesting kind of a thing of like digital ownership, not
Oh
just
yeah.
digital like just renting and stuff. So
Dude, I think about this stuff all the time. Like
it never stops. It never
it
stops.
really does. I mean, that's what that's why that's like that. The essence of that like thought is where the conclusion of all value is belief came from for me. Like
Hmm.
that's just the first path into the forest of value and belief.
Yeah. So NFTs are digital ownership, and the
Hmm.
ownership part it's a philosophical thing. The technology is starting to come around to make it real rather than just theoretical.
Mm.
But eventually we're going to get digital ownership, and that's one of the worst things that we have in the today right now as far as today's society is very little ownership. Almost
Mm.
everything is rent and fee, right? You just rent everything. You don't own anything. You're like a
Yeah.
debt slave in a lot of ways. And being able to own things, like even, so be able to own the things you pay for is good because then you can, do things like that instead of just paying for ad space. What if you just like homesteaded it, bought the space, now you own this piece of Twitter, for example. This
Yeah.
like this how about like 5-6 tweets down that space? You just own it now. Like, wouldn't
Well,
that be cool?
that's it. Well, that's part of that fractalization. Like you've taken the real estate of the mind and you fractalize it. You break it up into these infinite pieces that you can dive into as deeply as you want to. And now there's all these areas, these niches, these communities, right, where you can buy and sell that real estate. And that's where these NFTs are going. There's nowhere like it's going to fit on top of every single thing that we can abstract from our minds. We can turn it into a thing. We can tokenize it. We can give it utility or not. There's no limit to this, and that's why I this whole thing's going to blow up. But there's going to be a lot of crap out there. And that's mainly why I think that this whole Ethereum thing is actually exciting, because a lot of software fails, a lot of things blow up, a lot of potential for failure, but there's a lot of opportunity here also if we can crack the nut.
Well, one thing's for sure. I'm going to make like a trance remix song of your voice on loop saying real estate of the mind and sell that as an NFT, and it's going to make bank. Real estate of the mind.
That would be great.
That would be good. Kind of like, remember Elon Musk's NFT song?
I haven't heard it, but I've heard about it.
Yes. Anyway, enough chitter chatter on the random stuff. ETH2's Altair upgrade goes off smoothly with 98.7% of nodes now being upgraded. Ethereum 2.0, the beacon chain update, has gone off to a successful start, and all that stuff moving towards proof of stake, et cetera, et cetera. So, what do you know about this? What can you tell us?
All I know is that it feels right. I think, it's software. There's a lot of failure in software, and they've been failing a lot. But now they're starting to show, what pays off when you persevere, and when you have, some of the smartest people in the world working on the thing that they love to work on to achieve things that have never been achieved before. Like, there's an epic calling here. There's so many good reasons for them to do what they're doing. This is not going away. And only the people who have competition over the spaces of value think that this is a bad idea. Even if the whole thing blows up, it'll still be a great experiment. I mean, isn't that one of the other articles, the 33.5 billion, talked about how the beacon chain required a fork? Yeah, I just thought you'd do the other one first, because it was like the dark and then the light. This is the happy side, and the other one's the unhappy side. But
so let's just hit that real quick, because they're like a 2-for-1 package deal almost. 33.5 billion worth of Ethereum is trapped in the largest Ethereum contract. The largest beacon chain staking contract worth 33.5 billion is awaiting Ethereum mainnet merger to unlock. So basically, they've waited. Basically, it's caught in the transition, caught between the two worlds. It's kind of like how you have a wallet that, like your hardware wallet, you have money on there you can't access until you update the firmware. Yeah. It's kind of like that.
Okay. So there is an archetypical thing here that's happening, and it's embodied in the vision of Princess Leia and the projection from R2D2, and she's yelling or pleading, "Help me, Obi-Wan! You're my only hope." Right? She's there. She is this contract. Yes.
Jesus. Help me, Vitalik.
That's exactly it. And it's locked. She's trapped. She's imprisoned. It's imprisoned. And there's so much value there that's just waiting to be unlocked. And a lot of the world wants to unlock it. A lot of the world wants that to be free, to actually happen. And so there's value in it. And that's why people are believing in it. And there's a lot of different kinds of people who are really wanting this to happen and really trying to do everything they can to make it happen. And then there's $33.5 billion prize on the other side, right, for those who participate in making this happen. I mean, that's a lot of budget. That's a lot of runway to do a lot of things that a lot of people can be motivated to do. So I'm excited about it. I think it's not about if. There's enough incentive, I think, at this point. When this happens, what's like, how are they going to be stopped at that point? That's I don't know.
Now, the funny thing about that is something I kind of came to grips with Ethereum, because I always thought they were kind of cool things, and then I thought, oh yeah, they hit all these scaling and other structural problems. Like I'm not bullish anymore. And then at some point I hit around to, well, it's a Pandora's box of possibilities, is this whole smart contract world. and Ethereum just has so much money involved
Yeah,
that
yeah,
it just, I wouldn't say it's unstoppable, but it does go back to economic incentives of there's all this money that has the incentive to make sure it doesn't get wasted.
yeah.
So
It's
they're,
multi-dimensional network effect.
mm-hmm, yeah, and so that's another that's another fun, trance thing. Multi-dimensional network effect.
Well,
Real estate
so
of the mind. Just these little like
well,
these little
because
things just
that's where it's
system.
all at. These
Yes.
are all just little bits and pieces of our mind that we're just trying to share with each other, and we're just giving them value, and we're tokenizing them, and we're sending them back and forth to each other to push this economy forward, to explain what we value and communicate what we value, and that's that's all that this is. And the more seamless that gets, the connection, and this is, I
Mm-hmm.
hate to say, this is the thing that actually scares me about the metaverse, and to support you, like Ethereum itself has always been, it's made me feel squeamish. It's always made
Mm-hmm.
me feel squeamish because I haven't really wanted to touch it. I haven't really wanted to commit. I haven't really wanted to, buy in. And so I've never really held like Ethereum in any majority of my personal portfolio, but that
Mm-hmm.
changed actually just a couple weeks ago, and I made a significant shift, and
Yeah.
now I'm much more in Ethereum than I have been in most of my crypto career, and it's an empowering thing, and I think it's not going away. Like there's so much different
Yes.
between that and Bitcoin, and I haven't lost any love for Bitcoin, but this is a different thing.
Yeah, and it is a great example, as we chatted on last week's show about with Eleanor, the Super Bowl. Every single Super Bowl ticket is coming with an NFT version on Ethereum.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that doesn't get more mainstream than that, and
Right.
it's Ethereum. So there is significant kind of momentum behind it. A lot of a lot of people. I guess what I've been historically bad at looking at, maybe I just haven't. I've been too idealistic, but I've been bad at like looking at the way things are going. Like I've just seen technical changes and stuff like that, and be like, this is good, this is bad, therefore. But I don't see like global financial momentum as
Right.
much as
Yeah.
other investors see. And so I'm trying to get a little bit better on that. Like, I think Bitcoin's going to be around for a while. I don't think it's going to be number one for a while. I think Ethereum is honestly going to be the number one in the future, near future, maybe even. And it'll do that for a while. And I don't think anything lasts forever, but I'm just kind of getting that momentum feel. And there's a bunch of other, like, only Ethereum and Bitcoin have gotten that momentum behind them so as far as like feeling like they're here to stay. Although I was thinking about, you're talking about your Ethereum allocations. I didn't buy any Ethereum, but I did receive some last summer.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, all right, well, every time I move these tokens and like try to consolidate them, I'm burning a ton of value in fees. So I just consolidate it all into like a few $100 of
Yeah.
Ethereum. And then I'm like, might as well get some yield. So I put them on Thorchain. I was like, I'll provide yield, sure. And I am so like in the red on the Ethereum stuff there because I
Oh
timed it
yeah.
so poorly. First off,
Mm.
it goes onto Thorchain, goes 50-50 Rune in Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately after that, Thorchain got a big hack and was down for months. So I was earning no
Oh
fees on
yeah.
any of that stuff, and the token went down. And then during that time, like Ethereum went to the moon. And so like literally I like lost the half the potential gains during this big thing. And then
Yeah.
since then, like the trading volume hasn't been as good. And so I've been getting some like return, but it's still like catching up to this. If I just held it in either Ethereum and Rune separately, I would have made more money probably. But if I just held it in just Rune, I'd have made even more money in just Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
like every time I make a financial, I don't know, I'm just not good at that stuff. That's all. Good at timing, but some of my other stuff is doing better. But anyway,
So you talked
um,
about how you don't follow like these bigger trends, and I just wanted to touch on that just for a second. I got to do a couple book recommendations. I don't know if you've read Ray
okay,
Dalio Principles,
no, I don't
or
have much time for books today.
oh, that's too bad. All right,
It's the
so for your
digital
audience,
age.
If
Okay.
you want to learn more about like following the trends and learning about like how, like, because in the crypto space, all the technical stuff, I used to be that way and following every little movement, and I'm like, it's just too much. I needed to
Mm-hmm.
simplify it. This Principles and by Ray Dalio, that's book one. That'll help you like give you like the forest through the trees kind of view, and then The Inevitable by Kevin Kelly, understanding the 12 technological forces that will shape our future. Those between those two books, that's helped me to kind of like get a compass on like, okay, what to look for, not only like what's happening, but what to look for next. And that's been really, really helpful for me. And that's one of the reasons why I'm excited about this whole Ethereum thing, because it represents a lot of different things. With this will come interoperability besides staking. There's going to be more and more interoperability because everybody's like, okay, that looks like a standard. It's definitely different than Bitcoin, which has its own kind of standard, but that's, they're diverging appropriately now into their own niches and kind of their own domains. And this is what we want to see. That's one of
Mm-hmm.
these forces that we can see the trend of. And though this event is exciting, it's also exciting from a momentum perspective because it fits right in with a particular kind of path that now Ethereum is proving very much more likely to go down than others.
Yeah, it definitely, like Bitcoin being the OG and Ethereum being the, I guess, the industry leader, I would say at this point. And I don't, on a lot of exchanges, decentralized exchanges especially, I've noticed Ethereum trading volume, despite their horrendous fees, is higher
Mm-hmm.
than Bitcoin on a lot of times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going that direction. Ethereum's a little bit of a clusterfuck too, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm okay with just sort of like dipping my toes in the outside. Like, I'm no way am I going to mint these NFTs on Ethereum because I just can't. Like,
Right.
how
Right.
expensive is that
Yeah,
going to
we
be?
minted on Matic, by the way, on the Matic network with our float
Hmm.
NFTs.
Yeah, I mean that's the Ethereum L2, right?
Yeah, essentially,
Yeah,
and it's like discount transactions, very, very near free. Once you get onto the Matic network and pay that transfer fee,
yeah,
I forget what it's
that's.
called.
I was looking into that for like Loop Ring to like get on Loop Ring and stuff, but then it's
Mm.
just like the cost of getting out of it is just, it's like the Lightning Network problem, right? How do you
Yeah,
save on Lightning Network fees? Well, you got to like pay your on-chain fees to get your stuff there, and it's only like a shrewd calculation if like, well, as long as I get all the channels set up right, then I can save in volume over time. But it's not like it's cheap on Lightning. It's like, well, you got to get there first, and if you just
right,
want it for a couple payments, it's like annoying. But uh,
right.
let's pivot to this convoy thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
for
Oh,
those who have been living under, and it's funny because like in the crypto world, there's either just like hardcore like pro freedom people, or there's people that just, that's politics. They're not even like paying attention to it. But
yeah,
it,
yeah.
it's funny, So, for those who've been living under a rock, there's this convoy of truckers in Canada who have been protesting various government mandates, specifically, I believe, the vaccine mandate for them that would basically put a lot of them out of work anyway. And so basically, they're blockading the capital. And they have received a lot of donations, and those donations have been blocked a second time. And so basically, they froze the GoFundMe thing and stuff. And
10 million in Canadian
yeah,
dollars.
yeah, I mean, so that's basically like almost $1 million in like real dollars. But no, just kidding. No, it's all fake money anyway. But
Sure.
so at the time of writing, though, the group has raised 21 Bitcoin, or 902,000. So, um, yeah, basically, crypto is going around the financial blockade because here's the thing: financial censorship, and I'll let you give your more nuanced take on this. But financial censorship has been one of the number one reasons why crypto exists, yet it's been one of the least utilized use cases for crypto. Because as crazy as like as much as we want to like talk about freedom and principles and stuff, most people experience in the developed world experience almost zero financial censorship. It just not happening a lot, right? It just, you can buy whatever you want. Like, why would you need Bitcoin? Why would you need crypto? Why would you need Dash to buy your stuff with like no centralized third party if you just go to the bank or go to like the gas station, the grocery store, and your card works every time? Like, why do you care? This is why you care. It's starting to happen. Like, just, and when CBDCs become a thing, and it's just easier for the central bank, not regional banks, to control everything and block transactions, all of a sudden the premium on decentralized payment rails is going to become really high, I think. So, what are your thoughts?
I agree. Yeah, those fees are going to become high as the network effect of the collective beliefs of many different people who suddenly realize that they can be censored and probably are going to be censored in their financial transactions. Well, that's going to happen to a lot of people when a central bank fails. When a
Mm-hmm.
central bank fails, suddenly everybody who's related to that bank and many other banks that report to that bank, they will be censored in their financial transaction ability, as could go as far as Visa and MasterCard shut down for a few days, and then they'll have to recover the system and pump the system and do whatever they're going to do. But the people who don't know, they don't know and they don't care. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that if they're not in this space, if they're not paying attention, like, again, you've been living under a rock, but it's becoming more and more clear now, even to, let's say, the normies. I don't really care for that label, but people who are disconnected from crypto and disconnected from the ideals of freedom and are just fine and happy being a debt slave and not an owner. Those people exist, and because they've been in the cage and they've lived in the matrix and they've been fed well and cared for well by the system, they don't think
Mm-hmm.
anything's wrong. And this is the problem that they cannot are unequipped to see until the system that has been feeding them dies, because it's going to become to them as a complete surprise. And those are the people that I really, really kind of feel bad about. But we all know that they're out there, and I hope it doesn't come to that. I really do. I hope it doesn't. We don't see that level of collapse, but we're going to see some levels of collapse as we
Mm-hmm.
rebuild and remake this new system. And the debt slavery, let's say, virtue signal, or the idea that a debt slave is a virtue, being a debt
Mm-hmm.
slave, an obedient debt slave is a virtue, that's going to go away, I think, as we regain and reclaim our own sovereignty in finances and more. And that's what this whole convoy is about. We want freedom over our bodies at a minimum. Like, you cross a
Mm-hmm.
line. They're just saying, hey, you cross a line and we're fed up, and now we're just going to say no. And that's really, the
That's where we're
power
at.
that the people have, is just to say no. And the banks have been saying no, and the governments have been saying no, and
Mm-hmm.
the people haven't said no yet. And this is like the
Until
first.
now.
Right, exactly. This
Yeah.
is like the first, and now the people have understood the power of saying no, and there will be more of that, and that's going to be somewhat chaotic over this probably decade, is
Yeah,
my anticipation.
definitely. There's this interesting, the whole way, the, I guess, the modern world. I wouldn't call it like the world of, you know, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. That, I would say, the world that's coming to an end right now. That world, but still a lot of people are in. That world is a world that's increasingly permissioned, where it's basically like, like the you'll own nothing and be happy kind of thing,
Hmm.
where
Yeah.
you buy a house you can't afford, and you never really own it. You just make payments on it. You don't own your car. You don't own anything. You have to show up to work every day at this job where you do whatever they tell you to, and you're locked into like a salary amount. And if you don't, if the company makes profit or not, you still get that stability. If the company makes
Mm.
tons of profit, you don't really get any of it. You're just locked
Right.
into that. And so you're basically like renting, you're basically asking permission to use the bathroom all your life, kind of thing. Where
Right.
even, and it's starting to become more and more like that with like the almighty credit score, which is now in some cases being tied to like web search history. And of course, the Chinese government's ahead of the curve on this with, social credit scores and stuff. But we're doing that, and then now they kept on trying to do like, do you remember the Patriot Act and all that stuff? They kept on trying to
Yeah.
get people into a universal ID system, and
Oh, they
like,
snuck some things in there that are going to become relevant.
yeah, they got some things in there, and the real ID stuff for like flying, which New Hampshire's never agreed to, and they said you'll New Hampshire driver's license, you won't be able to fly starting next year, and it's been the same way like 5 years. They keep pushing it back because they keep trying to get New Hampshire to get on board, but just won't. And so it's and then of course the vaccine passport systems. That's like, well, you can do this if you do that, and you can do this, and it's just basically renting your whole life. Now,
Yeah.
and obviously like automatic withholdings from paychecks and things like that, and automatic withholdings in the case of inflation. If you're forced to use fiat, you automatically have your money, your net worth deducted to fund what the state does. And it's just like it's basically living like a childlike dependent existence.
Oh yeah. This is what the governments are salivating over. Yeah.
Yes, and they've been doing this increasingly over time, but thanks to crypto and other things, we're starting to get a point for like a break. And that's the thing people always tell me all the time is like, oh, wow, well, who cares about this? Like, what are you going to do with crypto? Just like not pay your taxes or anything? And it's like, well, if you realize there's a dichotomy change. Who here wouldn't love to pay taxes? To pay taxes out of their own free will. Say, you know what? I'm going to do this rather than
voluntary
just
taxes.
taken
Yeah,
from you.
I call that voluntary taxes, and there are examples in history where that has worked.
Yeah, and it's not even, and I'm not even getting that cool yet, that awesome yet. I'm just talking about like, well, if you don't pay it, they still kick your ass. I'm still talking in that paradigm. But there's the fact that you have all your money and can keep it if you want to and take the risks of, you know, being a criminal or whatever. But you can still do that rather than it's all just taken from you. You can just say, you know what? Like if someone wanted to have a big vault of, let's just say, Zcash, shielded Zcash for whatever, and just use that to trade, like they could just, be hard, but they could find a way to live completely out of the system. And you know, obviously that's risky, but the fact it's like I choose to, and it's just like if you own a house, like free and clear, for example, you get to decide, you know, okay, fine, you still pay property taxes. That sucks. That's kind of still renting the earth from the government because the government owns the planet. But again, if you understand this, right? But at least you can just say, you know what, I'm going to do what I want with my house, including I want to sublet it and I don't need anyone's permission really to do it. And I want to build this on it and I want to do whatever. Same thing with your car. Same thing with everything.
This is where we need to be. This is sovereignty. When you are a sovereign being, you own your stuff, you own your body, you own your mind, you own your actions, you own your breath, you own everything that's produced from this body first. Yeah. And then everybody else makes a request for the profit or the ownership or they say, hey, I will contract you for the efforts of your body, and when you give me your effort, I will take the product of your effort and sell it, and that will be my property, and that's the contract. Or now what we can do with this whole world of crypto is we can say, you know what, why don't you keep a share of what you just produced, and I'll go and sell it like a salesperson would, rather than
you have capital, you have equity and capital in your life, and that's kind of where
in
NFTs
your effort
are the next stage of giving back capital and equity to people.
And these are the things that people are going to learn more and more about. Like with real estate, the government, this is part of the mindset. The government owns the whole planet. We don't have to tell ourselves that story anymore. We humans can start owning some of the planet. Aren't we probably even more rightful to own some of the planet than governments? And,
like
there's this thing called allodial title.
Yeah. So, for example, digital real estate. The government hasn't squatted on that stuff yet. Like as far as, you know, the government doesn't own the metaverse yet. There's no property taxes in the metaverse. That's going to be...
Don't even say yet, dude. They can't get there. They won't. They can't.
They'll try.
There's no way. They're gonna, of course they're going to try, but they're going to require developers to do it, to execute. They can't do it. You can't do it
Yeah.
with a political mindset. You have to be a developer at some point to do that.
Yeah, and so that's the thing of just taking all property back. And there's something interesting about incentives, and I believe this in relationships as well as economy. I don't believe you should have power over other people really as much as possible, because power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. That's everyone says that. It's like so trite, but it's true that when you have a relationship with a business partner, with a customer, with a whatever, based on where are you going to go? Like it really turns the whole thing rotten.
Yeah.
Where
Well, fear is powerful, and fear is a motivator, and it's the only motivation that the governments and the regulators know, and most employers who work inside of hierarchies.
yeah,
But there's a natural hierarchy that is not based on fear. There's
uh-huh.
one that we generally call it a kind of this love thing.
Networks, not
Yeah.
hierarchies.
Exactly. And you can grow through that. You can't, and I've honestly I've kind of turned I've come to accept hierarchies. This is something you and I probably haven't really talked about, but I've made a big shift in rotation in the network's not hierarchy statement. I've
Mm-hmm.
kind of backed off on that, and now I acknowledge that there are hierarchies. I
Yes.
think that natural law is one of those kinds of hierarchies that can be taken apart. If you think about spiritual
Mm-hmm.
aspects of humanity, the systems of function within the body, social structures, they form naturally. Hierarchies exist, but it's when there's let's say imposed hierarchy, where at the
Yes.
top of the hierarchy, if it's not based on competence, then it's not a real authority. Basically,
Yeah.
it's if it doesn't have integrity, it's not a real hierarchy. It's a false hierarchy, in my opinion, and that's
Yes.
where I've kind
And
of
it could
evolved
be
to.
networks between hierarchies too. That there's
Yeah,
it's not always a hierarchy of hierarchies, right? It's not like
right.
this goes down. It's like this hierarchy, but then there's this hierarchy and they intersect, and you
Yes,
might be ahead higher than someone but lower than someone, and then it kind of like it provides a little bit more of an equality. Uh,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
yeah, it's so the with these kinds of incentives, for example, one of the reasons why the free market is such a powerful thing is that the ability of the customer to stop paying is extreme, right? That you
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
I'll go somewhere else. It and
Right.
so like you could lose everything overnight, just like Facebook stock, right? Like you
Yeah.
could just lose
Yeah.
everything, no matter how entrenched you are. You could lose everything overnight, and that makes a much more healthy relationship between the customer and the company. Although maybe
That's the
Facebook's a bad
basic
example
business
of that.
cycle.
Hmm.
That's why you can't have government regulators coming in, stealing from the population, and giving money to institutions and businesses that should die. The phrase "too big to fail" is the most tyrannical phrase that I think our generation should ever recognize as such.
Yeah, and the other thing, well, this is like the most off topic I'll get before in like personal relationships, like for example, with like a boss employee relationship, I think is inherently the way it's been done is kind of like a toxic relationship because one person has power over the other. When it should be, obviously, it should be a customer contractor kind of thing where the boss wants the employee because he needs something done and is willing to pay for them and he's happy it's a mutually beneficial engagement rather than like, well, where are you going to go? And the same thing applies to personal relationships. And I think that a lot of people have thought of the base marriage model wrong, where they just think you're locked into a thing and where are you going to go? And that breeds a lot of resentment. And I think the government wants that because they want you trapped in the system. They want you trapped to where you need a lawyer to get out. They want, or you're going to lose half your stuff. They want all that stuff. But if
Yes.
you kind of view it as we both have the same to offer each other, and we're going to make sure we both want to make sure the other person has recourse to leave at any moment without a ton of risk. I mean, at some point when you have houses and children and things like that, it just naturally becomes more difficult. But having as much of that free agency as possible, I think, makes a very strong relationship because you know why you're there at all times. And I do think that locking it in too quickly, where people just like get married like right out of call, do you, if you love me, I'll put a ring on it, and then you get into it, then you haven't built that working mutually beneficial relationship yet, and then now you're just stuck and you're breeding resentment as you're like, well, I'm not happy, but I can't do anything about it, or the cost is too high to do something about it. And then the exact same relationship that could have been perfect or not, or very strong, just now ends up being like full of resentment. So that's, I rather than that top down type of relationship in the world, I think that humanity as a whole has the opportunity in the coming years, in the coming generation, to explore a much more equal and voluntary relationship with just about every structure they interact with, whether it be, service providers, whether it be government governance, whatever, whether it be peers, whether it be employers, whether it be everything. Just have a
Well,
much more
I
healthy relationship.
I would modify what you're saying. Yes, equal and voluntary, but I would be careful with the word equal, and I would
Mm-hmm.
say that it is the voluntary nature that
Mm-hmm.
of the kinds of transactions. Once every single one of our transactions, including marriage and dating and all these kinds of things, doesn't have these kind of, let's say, power overtones, and they are indeed voluntary and nobody is
Mm-hmm.
coerced in any situation in any particular transaction. When that's true, then we can say that we have claimed our individual sovereignty and that we are sovereign beings making transactions among one another. And that's going to lead to equality. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily assume that there will be equality in it, but if everything is actually voluntary and not coerced, then the chips will fall where they naturally should fall in the
Mm-hmm.
realms of, like, according to what is moral in our society. And that's and there's and I like Breedlove on this. I forget Robert Breedlove. He's one of these crypto guys that I just started getting into. He's kind of a philosopher of sorts. He
He needs to live
claims
on
that,
he needs to live on crypto though, not just be a Bitcoin maxi, but that's a different
yeah,
story.
he should try. But I love his claim, and it's really got me thinking and testing, which doesn't happen very often these days. That the debt based monetary system itself is
Mm-hmm.
what has caused our moral degradation. And if we have hard money again, and everybody has hard money, and everybody has voluntary
Or as
nature to
Amari
spend that hard
Sachet
money,
would say, art de monnaie.
yeah, yeah. uh, then we will pull back more morality back into our society, and I think it's a very strong argument, and I think that
Yeah.
there's a lot to be said for it, and I don't, it makes me think very long term.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit over idealistic to do the Bitcoin fixes everything kind of thing. But at the same time, we can't underestimate just how deep the network effect of all the poor decisions that have been made can have about just like when you're in constant debt. I think that's like a cancer to the soul. Like when you don't, and it's not like when you you take out a loan on collateral, because then you're not quite in debt the same way. Like you can always pay it back with the collateral, but it's more like you take that to do a different opportunity here. But it's just this like credit score debt type thing where it's just
Yeah,
like
they're
like
tokens.
but it's like you don't own anything. You're like negative net worth is,
Hmm.
I think, a real problem. You know,
Yeah, well,
and
and the
also
first dollar issued started that way from the Federal Reserve. The first dollar came with some debt. How are you going to pay that back when that dollar is only going to get less and less valuable, and it comes with debt attached? It's the biggest scam in history.
and I like, for example, governments starting to claim student loan obligations as their assets. Like all these people owe us money that they can't get discharged through bankruptcy.
Oh yeah,
Therefore, we own this money as an asset. Like they're not going to let people
student
out of that
loans.
system.
Student loans are the largest single asset on the federal budget's books. That's the largest single asset.
Insane. Well, let's
Yeah.
wrap this up with the Dash Direct thingy. So, as I've mentioned in podcast past, there's this app called Dash Direct, and it basically allows you to spend Dash all over the U.S. at like 158,000 locations by doing a little like gift card thingy where you run up to a retailer, they give you the total, you enter the amount into the app, and then you buy from your fully self-custodial Dash wallet, and then you buy the exact amount of gift credit you need, and then you take it. So you hold Dash up until about 5 seconds before turning over that exact amount of value into credit, which then goes in. And recently, as in I think yesterday, they finally released a public beta of a virtual MasterCard version of this, where now you can do the exact same thing, except you can do it everywhere, like 10 million plus merchants now. So now, like the coffee shop down the street, all you got to do is just, how much is it? $12? All right, and you put 12, buy 12 of MasterCard credit, and instantly respend it. And so basically, that's the mass adoption tool we've been looking for in our life. No identity requirements. It's private, and you never have to give up control of your money for 1 second more than when you buy the exact amount you're about to plug into the thing. So,
so it's transactional in nature. You don't have to sign up for the service contract.
Yeah, you don't have to actually have a balance ahead of time. I mean,
Nice.
you do up to like 1 second ahead of time, but you don't have to have it in advance. You don't have to have a balance before you even know how much the purchase is going to be, and that is absolutely huge. The one thing that makes it a beta is it doesn't have NFC or near field contact. Is that what it stands for? I always keep forgetting.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Near field communications. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's annoying to use in an actual physical store because you'd have to key in the actual thing. There are some workarounds though.
Fix their sample pictures though, because they're advertising it saying hold phone to reader as though NFC is in place.
That's a placeholder for when it's like a full thing. This is only a sign in. In order to get that, you need to do like a sign in for like the beta and stuff.
Yeah.
So Great Wolf in the chat says not NFT, NFC.
Did I say NFT?
No, I don't know. Maybe just comment on earlier talk. But right now, that's going to come soon. They're figuring out how to do that. But in the meantime, you can do online ordering, no problem. Copy paste the card number and stuff. You can also do like if you get a receipt that has like a pay by phone option in a restaurant, you can just scan the QR code, do the pay by phone right there, and then go. You can also load this card into third-party apps such as like the Walmart Pay, and then use the Walmart Pay scanner to go pay in physical locations, including at their gas stations and stuff. So there's like workarounds for that in the meantime. But
that's cool.
You're
finding all these like workarounds, aren't you?
Yeah, because I use this stuff. This is my real stuff. Yeah. And so you can like really like you can live unbanked on Dash with one app right now.
Yeah, you've been pushing this for years, and I thought it was hard back in 15.
Oh, it's easy,
and it's only gotten easier. Yeah, I mean, you look back then.
Easy. And like I think it's like a $1,000 per day limit, and because of like KYC things, so that you don't need to do KYC, right? And so because of that, it's $1,000 per day, and it's $1,000 per load. But I mean, as long as you're not buying like a yacht or something with it, you should be fine.
Yeah.
Also, if you
I could get cash back. I could go to the grocery store, right? Buy groceries, get cash back with groceries, right?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know if they do cash back.
You should try that.
On these like gift card type things, but it's like I'm sure if there's like a big price spike in Dash, you could just buy 1,000, just keep it there, and then if the price dumps later, now you lock in like 1,000 at a time. But here's the thing. You could do that with like some of these gift cards have like a $10,000 per load limit because it's different for like store specific gift cards. So in the event, obviously you can just live on Dash, but if the price goes high, you can just max out the card, and then just over the next couple of days, just like max out all the gift card stuff that you're going to be using a lot of, and then just like move a bunch of your money into stuff you could like lock in some purchasing power for when the price goes down. It's an interesting hedge. Although you can just exchange it right at the point of sale, like just that's it. You can also kind of plan ahead, which is pretty nice. So anyway, we're running into time for the second podcast.
I know you had a hard stop.
Yes, I had a hard stop. So thanks very much for being on, Chuck. Thanks everyone for watching. The Dash podcast is next. We're going to be back for the Digital Cash Rundown next week. Not with Chuck, unfortunately, because
Boo.
Chuck comes but once every few months. But I would have him on constantly. I just don't want to abuse
Let's
his
do it
time.
again soon.
I don't have enough NFTs to pay him for all of that. But NFTs.
I don't get
soon.
paid. Just so everybody knows. Come on.
Not yet. Not yet. I mean, you're going to get a gift which you could possibly resell for some money, but whatever. So yeah, everyone, thanks for watching. There's going to be a new link. Just jump on the other link for YouTube and Odysee. That's already the scheduled link, and we'll jump right over to that. So
bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, guys, and have a good one.